Hi, I'm CJ and this is my RC channel. Getting set up to build the ruddervators. Now, this is pretty complicated. Take your time. I recommend laying everything out carefully, okay? I've got them paired as both of the movable surfaces are over here, the ribs at least, and both of the forward surfaces, the non-moving sections of the V-tail, are over here, just for organizational purposes for the moment. So in other words, these two are going to be A and A, and then B and B, and then these C's go C and C, okay, and so on. This set here with the two letters, okay, are going to be for the front. So AB is going to go from A to B or from A to B. I'm not sure yet. And then CB is going to go C to B or vice versa. D to E, E to D. Okay, and now the way they're kind of described, it almost makes you think that E to D is going to go like so. Okay, but I'm not going to know until I really go through the instructions in detail. What I would start by doing is laying everything out, and again, back here we have the same kind of situation. A is going to go here, okay, and then A to B is going to go like this. It's going to have to go like this because of the width, and this is a fatter surface to thinner surface, so it's going to go like that, okay, and then this one will go on this side over here. All of these have a little bit of what you might call flashing. If you are working with plastic models, you see this little nub right there. When you pop these out, either at the time it's probably easier just to pop them all out the way I did and then go through them all, clean them. Use an X-Acto knife, use a little emery board. There's a variety of ways you can do it, but clean up all these little spots where the laser cutting didn't completely cut, and that's intentional because if the laser cuts all the way around, the piece just falls out. So it's got to have small pieces where it's still connected to the main section of wood. In any event, that's probably altogether obvious, but I'm just saying. So clean all that stuff up because you don't want to have to do that later. Now, these items have these little tabs down here. Those are for when you're assembling. The idea is it's going to elevate that edge, basically giving a flat surface to what is otherwise an airfoil shape. So again, clean every piece, and then I'm going to thoroughly go through the instructions and go over all of this with you as I start putting this together. But everything keys together. I mean, there's obvious, like this piece here and here, you've got the same over here and here. Now the fronts are different, okay, and that's deliberate to make sure that this line here, and that's gonna be a bend. That's why that partial scoring, that laser cut doesn't go all the way through. It's kind of like the trailing edges, or excuse me, the wingtips. Remember how the wingtips had a scored piece and that gets bent slightly? Same thing is going to go on here. So as you can see, the notch for this one is low and the notch for this one is high. So make sure you've got the right parts. Now you'll notice there are certain things like this lightning hole here in the directions is not on this piece. Okay, this tail section has been redesigned since this drawing was done. Likewise, you'll notice that these pieces here, the pieces that go diagonally, are not visible. They're not on this drawing. So that's why you're going to have to pay particular attention. You'll also notice the cutouts here do not match the drawing. Nothing to, you know, be alarmed about. They've just upgraded the tail construction since this original drawing was done. So make sure to carefully read. I'm sorry I keep repeating that, but it's very important, because this is a very important piece. People have complained about flutter in the real tail surfaces on launch, or potentially in a high-speed dive. To avoid that flutter, you need to build this correctly. Okay, and these pieces here, these diagonals, are going to be very important. Those are going to be very much like the ones on the leading edge of the wing that added a lot of strength, a lot of torsional strength. And when we were building the outer sections, the first of the outer section, we had to put washout in, and that's when we put those in, is when the wing was propped up to lock in that washout, if you recall from those portion of the build videos. So these are going to be very important, and I'm going to go over all of this step by step. I'm going to take my time and show in video as much of this process as I can, just to make sure it's clear for you. Okay, the tail section is coming together. I just want to give you a few little tips, things that I found made it a little easier. Nothing is glued together yet. They are absolutely correct that these can be built, you know, pretty much just you lay it up and then you can glue it together. At the same time, you need to make sure that certain parts are aligned properly and fitting flush. The unmoving portion of the stabilizer, you do not need to pin it down. I would definitely pin down the rudder vader, the moving portion of the two tail sections. I would start by pinning down the rear edge, as I have here. Insert the ribs and these two sections, and then I would lay it down over it, snug things into place like this. And then I would pin very much like I've done here. The reason for this is, and I would use these pins as well. If you're using thin CA, as they recommend, this stuff is, you know, it sets up immediately. So you don't get a second chance at it, and these are very thin parts. If you make a mistake, it's going to be botched. So you, just for example, take a look at this one here. They have a habit of wanting to lift off depending on what kind of a surface you're using. So you don't need to put the pins through the wood. I would just, like I have done with these, put the pin in at a diagonal just to hold it in place. That way everything stays where it is. And I would have put pins at the edge here. Again, the only pins that are going through the wood are on the trailing edge. The leading edge is just being held to the side. That way everything is nice and snug and you're assured of getting good joints. The next thing I would do is I would glue the tops and the bottoms first. I would hold both of them, make sure that they are lined up correctly. You don't want them going askew on you. They're a little bit elevated at the front edge because they protrude through the leading edge wood. But back here, you want them to be nice and flush. Similar issue on the forward ones. This joint right here, you want to make sure that it's not, you know, askew like that. So I would make sure these two pieces are lined up, are snug against each other, and then I would tack them with a couple of drops, you know, high and low of thin CA, just to lock them into place. And then I would place it down, and I might even put a few, just like, you know, 3 pins on either side, just to kind of hold these pieces together. And that way you can, at your leisure, you know, apply thin CA to all the relevant spots. And then I would flip them over and get these joints here on this side. Instead of trying to do it all in one shot and using a lot of thin CA so it wicks around the corner, use the minimum amount of CA and just tack them in place, flip it, tack them again, and then you'll be done. There are some places, for example, here, along this edge here, likewise at the top, along this edge, and along here, where the joint isn't as snug and you're using 2 different types of wood. This slightly harder wood may not take to the thin CA as the same way balsa does. I would use some gap filling CA here and maybe hit that with some jet. I wouldn't try to make a big fillet, but I would want to make sure that, you know, this is the crucial jointing here and here. This is where it's going to break. If it's going to start at the top or at the bottom, most likely. So I would make sure that those are nice and solid, and you feel comfortable that that they're as strong as they're going to get within reason, you know. Right here, I've got the cross pieces lined up. I'm just keeping them organized. These are for the 2 leading edges. These are for the 2 trailing edges, with the exception possibly of CB and BC. So I'm 99% sure this is the right one to go with these because of their similar size. But what you can do, just to be sure, is test fit and pay attention to the directions. Just like on the leading edge, these are not going all in the same direction. They you know, one high, one low, one high, one low, kind of thing. So it's all you got to do is look here, and if the piece doesn't fit, if it looks like it's the wrong length, don't cut it to fit. Make sure that it's not for the trailing edge versus the leading. Simple enough. So there we go. I'm going to go ahead and glue everything up as I just described, and I will come back then. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please click like and please subscribe to my channel. If you click the bell icon, you'll receive notifications every time I launch a new video. Thank you for watching.